The wagon wheels groaned against the hard-packed earth, churning up clouds of red dust that hung in the scorching Arizona air. Clara Whitmore pressed a damp handkerchief to her lips, trying to filter the grit that coated everything in this God-forsaken wilderness. Through the canvas opening, she watched the endless expanse of desert stretch toward mountains that shimmered like mirages in the heat. "How much farther to Tucson?" her younger sister Margaret asked. Her voice cracked with thirst despite their careful rationing. 3 days, maybe 4, their father Samuel replied from his position at the reins. His weathered hands gripped the leather strips with the same determination that had carried them from Missouri across half a continent. Clara shifted on the hard wooden bench, her blue calico dress already faded from weeks under the relentless sun. At 22, she should have been married with children of her own, but circumstances had driven their family west instead. The bank had taken their farm after 2 years of drought, leaving them no choice but to join the stream of settlers seeking new beginnings in Arizona territory. The wagon train consisted of 12 families, each vehicle loaded with dreams and necessities. Clara had walked alongside most mornings to spare the oxen, her boots wearing thin against the rocky ground. She'd grown lean and brown, nothing like the pale young woman who'd left Independence 2 months ago. "Riders coming!" The shout came from Jim Patterson, their wagon master, a grizzled veteran of the Santa Fe Trail. Clara's mother, Elizabeth, clutched her arm. "Indians." "Can't tell yet," Samuel muttered, reaching for the rifle propped against the wagon seat. The shapes materialized through the heat waves, 6 riders moving fast from the southeast. As they drew closer, Clara's heart sank. These weren't Apache or Navajo. The men wore wide-brimmed hats pulled low, bandanas covering their faces despite the heat. Bandits. "Circle up!" Patterson bellowed. But it was too late. The riders swept down like a desert storm, guns blazing. Women screamed. Men shouted. Oxen bellowed in terror. Clara watched in horror as Tom Bradley fell from his wagon, crimson spreading across his shirt. His wife Mary's screams pierced the air. "Get down!" Samuel shoved his family into the wagon bed, fumbling with his rifle. A shot rang out, and he grunted, clutching his shoulder. "Father!" Clara reached for him, but rough hands seized her, dragging her from the wagon. She fought wildly, nails raking across leather gloves, until a fist connected with her temple. Stars exploded across her vision. When the world stopped spinning, she found herself face down in the dirt, hands bound behind her back. Around her, the bandits ransacked the wagons, tossing out supplies and searching for valuables. They'd gathered the women and children in a group, while the men who still lived sat under guard. "Please," Elizabeth begged, "take whatever you want. Just leave us be." The bandit leader, a man with cold gray eyes above his bandana, laughed. "Oh, we intend to take everything. Senora, including some of you pretty ladies for company." Clara's blood turned to ice. She'd heard tales of women taken by bandits, sold to brothels in Mexico or kept as slaves. Death would be kinder. Gunfire erupted from the rocks above. "Apache!" The war cry sent new terror through the captives, but the bandits cursed and scrambled for cover. In the chaos, Clara rolled behind an overturned water barrel, working frantically at her bonds. The battle raged for endless minutes. When the shooting finally stopped, an eerie silence fell over the massacre site. Clara peered around the barrel. Bodies littered the ground. Bandits. Settlers. Perhaps Apache, too. Nothing moved except the wind stirring the dust. Her fingers found a shard of broken glass, and she sawed at the rope until her wrists bled. Finally free, she crawled toward her family's wagon. Mother, Margaret, father. Samuel lay still, eyes staring at the merciless sky. Elizabeth slumped beside him, her green dress dark with blood. But Margaret, where was Margaret? "Margaret," Clara's voice cracked. She searched frantically among the bodies, her sister's yellow hair nowhere to be seen. Had the Apache taken her, the bandits, or had she fled into the desert? The sun hammered down without mercy. Clara knew she needed water, supplies, but shock made her movements clumsy. She gathered what she could, a canteen, some hardtack, her father's pistol, and stuffed them in a canvas sack. Which way to go? Tucson lay somewhere to the northwest, but without the wagon train, she'd never find it. Perhaps if she followed the trail back, she'd meet other travelers. Or perhaps she'd die of thirst before covering 10 miles. She chose west, stumbling away from the carnage into the vast emptiness. The desert swallowed her whole, a lone figure in blue calico against an ocean of red rock and thorny ocotillo. Hours passed in a haze of heat and grief. Her water ran out as the sun reached its zenith. Still she walked, one foot before the other, driven by pure instinct to survive. Tall saguaro cacti stood like sentinels, their arms raised to the burning sky. Lizards skittered across her path. In the distance, buzzards circled lazily. By late afternoon, her strength began to fail. She'd removed her petticoats, torn strips from them to wrap her bleeding feet. The pistol grew heavier with each step until she finally abandoned it. Keeping only the nearly empty canteen, a rock caught her toe, sending her sprawling. Pain shot through her ankle, and when she tried to stand, the joint gave way. She dragged herself into the meager shade of a mesquite bush, knowing she'd traveled her last mile. The sun sank toward the horizon, painting the desert in shades of gold and crimson. Beautiful and terrible, Clara thought. At least she'd die free, not in some Mexican brothel. She closed her eyes, lips moving in prayer for her family's souls and her own. Darkness crept across the landscape. The temperature plummeted, and Clara shivered in her thin dress. Coyotes called in the distance, their cries echoing off canyon walls. Soon they'd find her, or the buzzards would come with dawn. Through her delirium, she heard footsteps, soft, deliberate, barely disturbing the sand. Her eyes fluttered open to see a figure silhouetted against the stars, tall, lean, moving with the fluid grace of a predator. Long hair fell past his shoulders. In one hand he carried a bow, arrows bristling from a quiver on his back. Apache. Clara tried to scream but produced only a whisper. The warrior stood motionless, studying her with eyes that glinted in the moonlight. She waited for the killing blow, almost welcomed it. Instead, he knelt beside her, movements careful and controlled. Up close, she could see his face, angular features, skin bronzed by desert life, perhaps 30 years old. Scars marked his chest above the leather vest. His expression revealed nothing, neither hatred nor mercy. He spoke in a language she didn't understand, voice low and measured. When she didn't respond, he tried broken English. "You hurt?" Clara nodded weakly, gesturing to her swollen ankle. The warrior's hands moved over the joint with surprising gentleness. He produced a water gourd from his pack, holding it to her lips. The liquid tasted of leather and herbs, but she drank greedily. "White men, they come?" he asked, scanning the horizon. "Dead," Clara croaked. "All dead?" Something flickered in his dark eyes. Satisfaction? Pity? He sat back on his heels, seeming to weigh his options. Clara wondered why he hadn't killed her already. Perhaps he planned to trade her to his people, another captive for their camps. The warrior made his decision. He gathered dry grass and twigs, striking flint to steel until a small fire bloomed. From his pack came strips of dried meat and a handful of pine nuts, which he offered to her. Clara forced herself to chew despite her parched throat. While she ate, he tended her ankle, wrapping it with strips of soft buckskin. His hands remained clinical, careful not to touch more than necessary. When finished, he pointed to himself. "Taza, Clara," she whispered. He nodded once, then spread a blanket near the fire. With gestures, he indicated she should sleep. Clara wanted to protest, to ask his intentions, but exhaustion pulled her under. Her last sight was Taza sitting cross-legged beside the flames, bow across his knees, keeping watch over the stranger he'd chosen to save. The desert night deepened around them. Apache warrior and white woman, brought together by violence, bound by an act of unexpected mercy. Above them, stars wheeled through the infinite darkness, indifferent to the small human dramas playing out in the vast wilderness below. Taza Redhawk crouched in the shadow of a sandstone outcropping, watching the white woman sleep fitfully by the dying fire. The stars had wheeled past midnight, and still he remained vigilant, every sense attuned to the desert's whispers. In the distance, a screech owl called, an omen his grandmother would have said, though of good or ill. He couldn't say. The woman, Clara, shifted in her sleep, murmuring words he didn't understand. Her pale skin seemed to glow in the moonlight, so different from his people. Everything about her was soft, fragile, unsuited to this harsh land. Yet she'd survived when stronger ones had fallen. He should have ridden past, should have left her to the desert's judgment. His cousin Black Wolf would call him fool for showing mercy to an enemy. But as he'd approached through the gathering dusk, something in her eyes had stopped him, not fear, though that was there, but a stubborn spark that reminded him of... No. He pushed the memory down deep where it belonged, with all the other ghosts that haunted his nights. A coyote yipped nearby, too close. Taza notched an arrow, scanning the darkness. The scavenger circled their camp twice before his scent drove it away. There would be others, four-legged and two-legged both. The smoke from their fire was a beacon in the night. He'd tracked the bandit raid from a distance, watched the slaughter with grim satisfaction. The Mexican outlaws had been terrorizing travelers and Apache alike for months. When his war party had attacked from the rocks, it was justice, not mercy. They'd lost 2 warriors in the fight, young Eagle Feather, barely 16 summers, and old Joseph Crow, who should have stayed in camp with the elders. The other warriors had melted back into the canyons with their salvage from the wagon train. Guns, ammunition, blankets, food. Taza had lingered to ensure no bandits escaped, which was when he'd spotted the woman's trail leading west into nothing. Why had he followed? Perhaps curiosity? Perhaps the old debt that could never be repaid. Clara stirred again, this time waking. Her blue eyes flew wide with terror before remembering where she was. She tried to sit up, gasping as her injured ankle protested. "Rest," Taza said in his limited English. He handed her the water gourd. "Drink." She obeyed, watching him warily over the rim. When she finished, she asked, "Why are you helping me?" He understood the question but had no words to answer. How could he explain the complex web of honor, debt, and simple human compassion? Instead, he shrugged and fed more sticks to the fire. "My family," Clara began, her voice breaking. "They're all dead. My sister Margaret, I couldn't find her body." Maybe she... Hope flickered in her eyes. Taza had seen no other survivors, but he didn't say so. Hope could keep someone alive in the desert better than water sometimes. "You have people?" he asked. "Where you go?" "Tucson. We were going to Tucson." She looked around at the vast emptiness. "I don't even know which way it is anymore. 3 days' walk, 4 with bad foot." He gestured at her ankle. "I take you to Soldier Fort. They help." Clara's face darkened. "No, please, I can't. There was a man in the wagon train. He said things, tried to." She shuddered. "If I show up alone, they'll think I'm ruined. No decent person will help me." Taza understood more than she knew. He'd seen what happened to women without protection in the white settlements. His own sister. The memory crashed over him like a flash flood. Little Flower had been gathering piñon nuts near Cienega Creek when the soldiers found her, barely 15, with their mother's gentle smile and quick laugh. They'd used her roughly, left her broken among the rocks. She'd lived 3 days, long enough to name her attackers, though justice never came. The Bluecoats claimed she was a hostile, that they'd acted in self-defense. Taza had buried her wrapped in their grandmother's finest blanket, singing the old songs while his heart turned to stone. That was 6 moons ago. The rage still burned, carefully banked like coals waiting for wind. He realized Clara was staring at him, perhaps seeing something in his expression. "You lost someone too," she said softly. It wasn't a question. "Sister," the word came out harsh. "Soldier's killer." Clara's face went pale. "I'm sorry." "You're not sorry. Your people do it." "They're not my people." The vehemence in her voice surprised them both. "Those men, the ones who hurt your sister, they're nothing to me, just like the bandits who killed my family. Evil is evil, no matter what color it wears." Taza studied her in the firelight. Most whites he'd encountered saw Apache as less than human, savage beasts to be exterminated. This woman spoke as if she saw deeper truths. "You different," he admitted. "My mother was a Quaker," Clara said. "She taught us that all people carry the same light inside, that violence only breeds more violence." Her voice turned bitter. "Look how that turned out." They sat in silence while the fire crackled between them. Finally, Taza made a decision that would have earned him exile from his band. "I know place," he said. "Hidden canyon, water, shelter. You rest, heal, then decide where go." "Why would you do that? I'm your enemy." "You enemy?" He gestured at her torn dress, her bandaged ankle. "You no warrior, no soldier, just woman. Hurt, alone. Like my sister was." Clara's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you," she whispered. Taza stood abruptly, uncomfortable with her gratitude. He scattered the fire, kicking sand over the coals. "We go now. Travel in dark, rest in day. Safer." He fashioned a crude crutch from a mesquite branch, helping Clara to her feet. She leaned heavily on the support, face tight with pain but determined. That spark again, the one that had made him stop. They moved slowly through the desert night, Taza choosing paths that avoided the worst terrain. Clara struggled but didn't complain, even when thorns tore at her already shredded dress. He admired her courage, though he'd never say so. As dawn approached, they reached a series of low hills dotted with palo verde and ironwood trees. Taza led them into a narrow cleft between two ridges, following a dry wash that would run with water during the monsoons. The passage opened into a hidden valley, perhaps half a mile across, sheltered on all sides by towering rock walls. A spring bubbled from the base of the eastern cliff, feeding a small pool fringed with willows and cottonwoods. Ancient petroglyphs marked the stones. Spirals, handprints, images of hunters and prey from a time before memory. "This place sacred," Taza explained. "Old ones come here for visions, now empty. People afraid of ghosts." Clara sank gratefully beside the pool, cupping water in her hands. "It's beautiful. You stay here." He pointed to a shallow cave beneath an overhang. "I bring food, medicine. Come back tomorrow." "You're leaving?" Panic edged her voice. "Must go. My people look for me. Think I dead, maybe." He pulled a knife from his belt, offering it handle first. "Take, for protection." Clara accepted the blade with trembling hands. "Taza, I don't know how to thank you. No, thank. Just live. Make my sister's spirit happy, maybe." He turned to go, then paused. From around his neck, he removed a small leather pouch on a cord. "Medicine bag. Keep safe." Before she could respond, he vanished into the maze of rocks, moving silent as smoke. Clara clutched the pouch, feeling the weight of small objects inside, stones, perhaps, or bones. She didn't look. Some gifts shouldn't be questioned. The hidden canyon embraced her with morning shadows and ancient silence. Somewhere in the cliffs, a canyon wren sang its cascading song. Clara washed the blood and dirt from her face, drank deeply, then crawled into the cave's shelter, on the smooth wall. She could make out more petroglyphs, a figure that might be a woman, arms raised to the sun. She wondered if Taza would really return, or if this was his way of granting her a peaceful death away from scavengers. Either way, she was grateful, as sleep took her. She pressed the medicine bag to her chest and whispered a prayer for the Apache woman she'd never known, whose death had somehow led to her salvation. Outside, the desert awakened to another day of ruthless beauty. Hawks circled on thermals, hunting. Lizards emerged to bask on sun-warmed stones. And in the hidden canyon, 2 wounded souls from enemy peoples had found an unexpected moment of grace, fragile as spring ice, precious as water in the wilderness. The sun climbed toward its zenith when Clara woke to find Taza sitting cross-legged at the cave entrance. cleaning a rabbit he'd snared. He worked with practiced efficiency, his knife moving in precise strokes. She watched through half-closed eyes, noting the concentration on his face, the careful way he preserved the pelt. "You awake?" he said without looking up. "Good. Need eat." Clara sat up slowly, her ankle throbbing despite the tight binding. "You came back. Said I would." He seemed puzzled by her surprise, while the rabbit roasted over a small fire. Taza examined her injury. His fingers probed gently but thoroughly, and Clara bit her lip to keep from crying out. "Bone not broken, but hurt, swollen, need time." From his pack, he produced a collection of dried plants and roots. Apache medicine. Make better. He crushed herbs between 2 stones, mixing them with water to form a paste. The smell was pungent, earthy. When he applied it to her ankle, it burned at first, then turned cool and numbing. "You're English," Clara ventured. "Where did you learn?" "Mission school. Priests take Apache children, teach white ways." His expression hardened. "Beat us for speaking our tongue. Cut our hair. Say our spirit's evil." "How long were you there?" 4 winters. Run away. Go back to mountains. To my people. But damage done. Not full Apache anymore. Not white. Something between. Clara understood that feeling of not belonging. "My grandmother was Irish. In Boston. They called us dirty Catholics. Said we weren't real Americans. That's partly why we headed west. To escape the hatred. Hatred everywhere." Taza said flatly. "Cannot escape. Only survive." They ate in companionable silence, sharing the rabbit and some agave hearts Taza had roasted in the coals. The meat was tough but flavorful, and Clara realized she was ravenous. When had she last eaten properly? After the meal, Taza showed her around the hidden canyon. Despite her injured ankle, she insisted on walking, leaning heavily on the mesquite crutch. He pointed out edible plants, prickly pear pads, mesquite pods, the tiny seeds of grasses that could be ground into flour. "This one." He indicated a low shrub with gray-green leaves. "Good for pain. That one make tea for fever. Learn these. Maybe save your life." At the pool, he demonstrated how to catch the small fish that darted in the shallows, using a trap woven from willow branches. Clara tried to memorize everything, knowing her survival might depend on these lessons. As afternoon heat built, they retreated to the cave's shade. Taza worked on fletching new arrows while Clara practiced phrases in Apache, stumbling over the unfamiliar sounds. He corrected her pronunciation with patience she hadn't expected. "Why you want learn?" he asked. "If I'm going to survive out here, I should know how to speak to people I might meet. Not all Apache are enemies, despite what I was taught." "Most Apache kill you," he said bluntly. "See white woman alone. Think you spy, maybe. Or take for slave. Trade to Comancheros." Clara's blood chilled. "Then why are you different?" Taza was quiet for a long moment, his hand stilling on the arrow shaft. "My father different too. He trader, speak many tongues. Say understanding between people's possible. Whites kill him at peace talk. Shot him under white flag. Oh, Taza. After that, mother's brother raised me. Teach warrior ways, but father's words stay in my head. Enemy just man you not understand yet. Foolish maybe, but sometimes." He gestured between them. "Sometimes true." The wind shifted suddenly, carrying the scent of rain. They looked up to see dark clouds massing over the mountains to the north, lightning flickering in their depths. "Storm coming," Taza said. "Big one." Within an hour, the sky had turned the color of a fresh bruise. Wind whipped through the canyon, setting the cottonwoods to dancing. The first fat drops of rain hissed on the hot stones, then the heavens opened. Clara had seen thunderstorms in Missouri, but nothing like this desert tempest. Rain fell in sheets so thick she couldn't see the far wall of the canyon. Lightning struck the ridges above, thunder following so close it shook the ground. The dry wash became a raging torrent in minutes, brown water churning with debris. They huddled in the cave, but wind drove the rain sideways, soaking them despite the overhang. Taza pulled Clara deeper into the shelter. wrapping his blanket around her shoulders. "Normal?" she shouted over the storm's fury. "Monsoon season starting," he called back. "Good for desert, dangerous for people." A deafening crack split the air. Lightning had struck a cottonwood by the pool, splitting it down the middle. Half the tree toppled into the water with a tremendous splash. Clara found herself pressed against Taza, trembling not entirely from cold. His arm circled her shoulders, holding the blanket in place. She could smell sage and smoke on his skin, feel the steady beat of his heart. For a moment, the cultural gulf between them seemed no wider than a breath. The storm's violence peaked and gradually subsided, leaving steady rain in its wake. Water cascaded over the cliff edges in dozens of waterfalls. The desert that had seemed so dead was suddenly, miraculously, alive. "Look," Taza pointed. Where the ground had been bare hours before, tiny green shoots emerged. Dormant seeds, waiting months or years for moisture, burst into life. By tomorrow, the canyon would be carpeted in wildflowers. "It's magic," Clara breathed. "Not magic, just desert way. Look dead, but life waiting underneath, like people sometimes." She turned to find him watching her with an expression she couldn't read. Their faces were very close. Clara's heart accelerated, but not from fear. She saw her own confusion reflected in his dark eyes. This attraction that should not exist between ancient enemies. Taza pulled away first, busying himself with checking their supplies for water damage. Clara remained wrapped in the blanket, sorting through her tumultuous emotions. Her family lay dead barely 2 days past. She should be mourning, not feeling. Whatever this was. Night fell with rain still pattering on stone. They shared a cold meal, neither mentioning the moment during the storm. But awareness hummed between them like lightning charge. "Tell me about your sister," Clara said eventually. "What was her name?" "Little Flower. In Apache. Goju Bai." His voice softened. "She loves storms like this. Dance in rain, laugh at thunder, say it washed the world clean. She sounds wonderful. She was kind like our mother. Tried to heal baby rabbit once, leg broken. Cried for days when it died." He smiled sadly at the memory. "I tell her rabbit too weak for this world. She say then world need change, not rabbit." Clara felt tears sting her eyes. She was right, maybe, but world not change, just get harder. They talked late into the night while rain drummed overhead. Taza told her about Apache life, the changing seasons, the ceremonies, the complex web of clan relationships. Clara shared memories of Missouri, green fields, church socials. The day her father announced they were heading west, neither mentioned what would happen when her ankle healed. The future stretched uncertain as the desert itself. For now, there was only this cave, this unlikely companionship, this fragile shelter from the storm. When Clara finally slept, she dreamed of dancing in the rain with a laughing Apache girl. Their hands joined, spinning until the whole world blurred into one. Outside, the desert bloomed in darkness, drinking deep of the rare gift of water. Toads emerged from underground burrows to sing their ancient chorus. Seeds that had waited years for this moment burst their coats and reached for life. And in the hidden canyon, two souls from opposite worlds discovered that understanding could grow in the most unlikely ground, tender and surprising as rain in the wilderness. 3 days after the storm. Clara's fever struck without warning. She woke shivering despite the morning heat, her skin burning to Taza's touch. The ankle wound, aggravated by their flight through the rain, had grown angry and red, infection spreading beneath the skin. "No, no, no!" Taza muttered, pressing a hand to her forehead. The heat radiating from her body alarmed him more than any Apache war party could. Clara's eyes fluttered open, glazed and unfocused. "Margaret?" she whispered. "Is that you? I can't find you in all this smoke." "Shh." Taza wet a cloth in the pool, laying it across her brow. "Rest. I bring medicine." He knew the plants he needed: willow bark for fever, desert mallow for infection, creosote for cleansing wounds. But the strongest medicines grew high in the mountains, a day's journey at least. Clara might not last that long. Working swiftly, He prepared what remedies he could from the canyon's plants. The willow tea was bitter enough to make Clara gag, but he coaxed it down her throat sip by sip. He cleaned the wound with creosote wash, packed it with crushed mallow leaves, and bound it fresh. By midday, her fever had climbed higher. She thrashed on her blanket, lost in delirious dreams, calling out names he didn't recognize. Childhood friends, perhaps, or family members he'd never know. Sometimes she spoke to her dead parents, begging their forgiveness for surviving when they had not. Taza kept the cloths cool on her skin, forced water between her cracked lips, and found himself praying to gods both Apache and Christian. He'd seen too many die of infection in the desert, without proper medicine. Clara's chances grew slimmer with each passing hour. As shadows lengthened, she seemed to rally slightly. Her eyes focused on his face with momentary clarity. "Taza, you're still here?" "Always here," he said, not questioning why that word came so easily. "I'm dying, aren't I?" Her voice was calm, accepting. "No, you fight, you strong." She smiled weakly. "My father, he wanted me to marry Harold Brewster back in Independence. Said I was too willful. Needed a firm hand. I ran away the night before the wedding. That's really why we came west. Because I shamed the family. You did right. Marriage without love is prison. Have you ever been in love, Taza?" He was quiet for a long moment, wringing out another cool cloth. "Once. Girl from Jicarilla Band. But her father want her marry important warrior. I just trader's son, half trained by whites. Not good enough. I'm sorry. Better maybe. She happy now. 3 children. I alone but free." Clara's hand found his, her fingers hot and dry as paper. "Not alone now?" His throat tightened. This white woman who should mean nothing to him had somehow become everything in just a handful of days. The thought of losing her created a pain worse than any wound. "Sleep," he said gruffly. "Save strength." But sleep brought no peace. Clara's dreams turned dark and violent. She cried out, pushing at invisible attackers, lost in some nightmare battlefield. When Taza tried to calm her, she didn't recognize him, scrambling away in terror. "No, please," she screamed. "I won't go with you. Father, don't let him." The fever had broken open some deep wound in her memory. Taza held her gently but firmly, keeping her from injuring herself worse. She fought him with surprising strength before finally collapsing, sobbing against his chest. Near midnight, the crisis peaked. Clara's breathing turned shallow and rapid. Her pulse fluttered like a trapped bird beneath his fingers. Taza had seen this moment too many times, the spirit preparing to leave the body, drawn toward the other world. "No," he said fiercely. "You not go. You hear me? Clara, not permitted." He lifted her in his arms, carrying her to the pool. The cold water might shock her system, might break the fever's hold, or it might kill her faster. But doing nothing meant certain death. He waded in fully clothed, lowering her into the spring-fed water. Clara gasped, eyes flying wide, fighting to breathe. Taza held her steady, supporting her head, whispering Apache prayers his grandmother had taught him. "Come back," he commanded. "Your path not finished. Come back to this world." For endless moments, she hung suspended between life and death. Then, gradually, the terrible heat began to break. Her breathing deepened. The wild look faded from her eyes, replaced by exhausted recognition. "Taza?" Her voice was barely a whisper. "Here, always here." He carried her back to the cave, wrapping her in every blanket they had. She shivered now with normal cold, the fever's grip finally loosening. Taza built up the fire and held her close, sharing his body's warmth. "Saw my father," Clara murmured against his shoulder. "He was angry, said I brought shame, brought death to them all. Maybe he was right. No, evil men bring death. You bring nothing but light." She tilted her head back to look at him, and something shifted in the air between them. Without thought or plan, Taza lowered his head and brushed his lips against hers, the briefest touch, soft as moth wings. Clara's breath caught. "We shouldn't. I know." But knowing and doing were different things. She reached up, fingers threading through his long hair, and pulled him down for a deeper kiss. It was desperate and tender at once, tasting of tears and herbs and impossibility. When they broke apart, both were trembling for reasons that had nothing to do with cold. "My people would cast me out," Taza said roughly. "Mine would call me ruined." Clara's laugh held no humor. "Maybe I am. Maybe I've been ruined since the night I ran from that marriage, and everything since has been punishment. No." He cupped her face in his hands. "You free woman, choose own path. That not ruin, that courage." She closed her eyes, tears sliding down her cheeks. "I'm so tired of being strong." "Then rest. I be strong for both tonight." He held her as the fire burned low, feeling her breathe against his chest. Outside, coyotes sang to the stars. The desert stretched endless and unforgiving in all directions, full of dangers that would separate them come daylight. Their peoples were enemies. Their worlds could never merge. But for these few hours in the darkness, none of that mattered. There was only the ancient rhythm of two hearts beating in time, the comfort of human warmth against the cold, and the fragile, impossible hope that love might bloom even in the harshest ground. Dawn came too soon, painting the canyon walls in shades of rose and gold. Clara slept on, the fever finally broken, her face peaceful in the morning light. Taza watched her breathe, memorizing each detail, the way her hair caught fire in the sun, the determined line of her jaw even in sleep, the small scar on her chin he'd never asked about. He knew he should leave, return to his people, forget this white woman who had no place in his world. It would be the wise thing, the safe thing. Instead, he stayed. When Clara woke, clear-eyed and hungry for the first time in days, she found him preparing a meal of rabbit and cactus fruit. She smiled, and his heart turned over in his chest. "Thank you," she said simply, "for saving my life. Again." "You saved mine too," he replied, though he couldn't explain how, only that the bitter stone of his heart had cracked open, letting in light he'd thought lost forever. They didn't speak of the kiss, or the impossibility of their situation, but it lived between them in every glance, every accidental touch, every carefully maintained distance. The fever had broken more than just her body's resistance. It had broken through the walls they'd built, leaving them vulnerable to a different kind of heat, one that threatened to consume them both. The morning sun cast long shadows across the canyon floor as Clara struggled to sit upright. Pain shot through her body, not just from the infected ankle, but from deeper wounds she'd hidden even from herself. The fever had stripped away her defenses, leaving her raw and exposed. "Easy," Taza said, moving to support her. "You still weak." As he adjusted the blanket around her shoulders, his hand brushed the torn fabric of her dress. Clara flinched violently, pulling away. The sudden movement sent fresh agony through her ankle, and she couldn't suppress a cry. "Let me see wound," Taza said, reaching for the hem of her dress. "No!" The word came out sharp, panicked. Clara's hands flew to hold the fabric down, her face draining of color. Taza sat back, studying her with those dark, perceptive eyes. "More hurt than ankle. I know this. See it when fever take you." Clara's breathing came quick and shallow. The secret she'd carried, the shame that gnawed at her bones. How could she speak it aloud? But blood had soaked through the makeshift bandages she'd fashioned from her petticoat. The wound wouldn't heal without proper care. "Please," she whispered, though whether begging him to help or to leave it alone, she wasn't sure herself. With infinite gentleness, Taza said, "No shame between us, only truth." Something in his voice broke through her terror, trembling. Clara slowly lifted the torn dress, revealing the angry gash along her ribs. Too precise to be accidental, too deep to have come from fleeing through thorns. Taza's expression didn't change, but she saw his jaw tighten. Knife wound, old, maybe weak, 8 days. Her voice was hollow. "The night before the massacre." He began cleaning the wound without asking questions. His touch clinical but gentle. The infection here was worse than her ankle, the edges inflamed and weeping. As he worked, Clara found herself speaking, the words spilling out like pus from a lanced boil. His name was Edgar Holbrook. My father owed him money, gambling debts from Independence. When he couldn't pay, Holbrook said he'd take me instead. Call it marriage, make it legal, but we all knew what it really was. Taza's hand stilled for a moment before continuing their careful ministrations. The night before we left Missouri, Father told me to pack my things, that I'd be going with Holbrook in the morning. I begged, pleaded, but he said the family's honor was at stake. That night, Holbrook came to inspect his property. Her voice broke. Taza squeezed water from a cloth, saying nothing, letting her speak at her own pace. I fought when he wouldn't stop. I grabbed his own knife, caught him here. She gestured to her ribs. But he was stronger. Would have killed me, except my mother heard the screaming. She hit him with a poker from the fireplace. We thought we'd killed him. Good, Taza said flatly. Man like that, better dead. We fled that same night. Father was furious, but Mother said we had no choice. The whole journey west. He barely spoke to me. Said I'd ruined everything, brought disaster on the family. And he was right, wasn't he? They're all dead because of me. No! Taza's voice turned fierce. Bad men kill them, not you. If we'd stayed in Missouri, then you be slave to evil man. Mother and sister too. Maybe death better than that life. Clara looked up at him through tears. You really believe that? Know it. See what men do to women they think they own. Apache, Mexican, white, no difference. Evil wear many faces. He finished cleaning the wound, packing it with fresh herbs. The medicine stung, but it was a clean pain, purifying. As he worked, Clara noticed old scars on his hands and arms, warriors' marks, each telling its own story of violence survived. There's more, she whispered. The fever dreams, they weren't all dreams. Taza waited, patient as stone. During the massacre, when the bandits gathered the women, their leader looked at me and said Holbrook would pay well for my return. He survived. He sent them. All those people died because he wanted his property back. The words hung between them like smoke from a signal fire. Clara waited for Taza to pull away, to see her as the poison she knew herself to be. Instead, he covered her hand with his. You think you bring death, I think you bring justice. Bad men chase you, find only their own end. He gestured to the desert beyond their shelter. Holbrook's dog's dead. He not find you here. Let me die, Clara said suddenly. The words she'd whispered in her delirium now spoken with full consciousness. It would be better, cleaner, no more blood on my hands. No. The single word held absolute finality. Why? She turned on him, anger flaring. Why do you care what happens to some white woman who brings nothing but trouble? Your sister is dead, your people suffer, and you waste time on me? Because... He stopped, struggled with words in a language not his own. Because darkness not defeat darkness. Only light do that. Little flower tell me this, before she die. Say hatred make us like them, empty, cruel. Say we must choose different path. I'm not light. Taza, I'm not your sister. I'm just a broken woman who should have died with her family. He studied her for a long moment, then pulled something from his pack, a small mirror, its surface clouded with age. Look, he commanded. Clara turned away. I don't want to see. Look, gently but firmly. He held the mirror before her face. She saw a stranger, hollow cheeks, tangled hair, eyes that had witnessed too much. But Taza pointed to something else. See? Still fighting, still fierce, spirit not broken, only bent, like desert plant in drought. Look dead, but roots run deep. Wait for rain. What if the rain never comes? Already here. He set the mirror aside, cupping her face in his hands. You survive worst men can do, survive desert, survive fever. Now must survive own thoughts. Clara closed her eyes, leaning into his touch. I'm so tired of being afraid. Fear keep you alive, but not same as living. When she opened her eyes, he was very close, his breath warm on her face. This time, she didn't pull away when he kissed her, soft, careful, as if she might shatter. When they parted, she was crying again. But these tears felt different, cleansing, like the storm that had brought life to the desert. "I don't know how to do this," she admitted. "Any of it, being here, feeling this way about you, it's all impossible. Apache say nothing impossible, only different paths to same place." He smiled slightly. "Maybe we make new path, not Apache way, not white way, just our way." Clara wanted to believe him, but the weight of the world pressed down on her shoulders. Outside their shelter, two peoples warred over land and honor. Her own people would call her defiled twice over, by Holbrook's attack and by an Apache's touch. His people would see her as the enemy who corrupted their warrior. "They'll hunt us," she said. "Both sides. Let them come." His hand dropped to the knife at his belt. "I protect what is mine." The possessive note in his voice should have frightened her. Instead, it kindled warmth in her chest, the first spark of something other than fear or grief since that night in Missouri. "Am I yours, then? If you choose, I not take, only accept what freely given." Clara studied his face, the sharp plane softened by compassion, the warrior's strength tempered by gentleness. She thought of all the paths that had led to this moment, all the pain and loss that had brought them together. "Then I choose," she said simply. Taza pulled her against him, careful of her injuries, and she rested her head on his shoulder. Outside, the desert waited with all its dangers. But for now, in this hidden place, two wounded souls had found something worth fighting for. Not just survival, but the possibility of healing, of building something new from the ashes of their separate griefs. The sun climbed higher, and with it came the dry heat of another desert day. But in the shadows of the ancient canyon, beside the spring that had witnessed centuries of human hope and sorrow, Clara Whitmore and Taza Redhawk began the slow work of choosing life over death, love over fear, and the narrow, difficult path that might lead them both home. The moon hung like a silver peso in the star-drunk sky, casting shadows that turned the canyon into a landscape of dream and memory. Clara sat with her back against the cool stone wall, watching Taza tend the small fire. 10 days had passed since her fever broke, and though her body grew stronger, her heart remained a battlefield. "Tell me about her," she said quietly. "Your sister. Tell me everything." Taza's hand stilled on the rabbit skin he was preparing. For a long moment, only the fire spoke, crackling its ancient language. "Little flower born in spring storm," he began, his voice soft with memory. "Thunder shake the mountains, lightning dance across sky. Grandmother say the storm spirits bless her, make her brave." He fed another stick to the flames, watching them leap and twist. "She small but fierce. Once, when she 7 winters, Mexican traders come to our camp, try to cheat us, trade whiskey for good blankets. Little flower stand up, tell them go away, say their heart's poison like their drink." Clara smiled despite the sadness in the tale. "What did they do? Laugh first, then she throw their whiskey in fire, make big flame, scare their horses." A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "They leave quick, father proud, but also worried, say she too bold for woman. Your father sounds wise. He try to walk between worlds, learn white ways but keep Apache heart. Teach us both, little flower and me. Say knowledge is power, understanding is survival." Taza moved to sit beside her, close enough that she could feel his warmth in the cool night air. "She loved learn everything. Birds, plants, stars, always asking why, how, what mean, drive mother crazy with questions. Like someone else I know," Clara said, thinking of her sister Margaret's endless curiosity. "Day she die." Taza's voice roughened. "She go gather piñon nuts. Supposed to stay close to camp, but see golden eagle circling. Follow it to watch nest. That where soldiers find her." Clara took his hand, feeling the tremor run through him. "I track her when she not come back. Find her by creek. Still alive, but..." He closed his eyes. "They hurt her bad. Break something inside. Not just body, spirit too. Oh, Taza. She look at me. Say, brother, why men do this? What I do wrong? I no have answer. Hold her. Sing old songs while she slip away. Promise to bury her high, where eagles fly. Tears ran down Clara's cheeks. How do you bear it? The pain, the injustice. Same way you bear yours. One day, one breath. Sometimes hate fill me up, make me want to paint warpath. But then I hear her voice, like wind in pines. Choose love, brother, always choose love. They sat in silence, hands linked, sharing the weight of memory. Finally, Clara spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. My father wasn't always cruel. When I was young, he'd lift me on his shoulders at harvest time, call me his golden girl. Said I had my grandmother's spirit, too wild for town life. She stared into the fire, seeing faces in the flames. But the farm failed. Drought, then floods. Each loss made him harder, like ground baked by sun. Started drinking, gambling. Mother tried to hold us together, but cracks spread through our family like drought lines in mud. Poverty make people desperate, Taza said. See it in my people too. Lose land, lose food, lose hope. Some turn to whiskey, some turn mean. The night he told me about Holbrook, I saw something die in his eyes, like he was already burying me. Mother begged him to reconsider, but he said a man's word was his bond, that our family name meant more than my happiness. Clara's voice turned bitter. Family name? What good is a name when it's bought with your daughter's freedom? What honor is there in selling your child to pay a gambling debt? No honor, only shame. Your father know this, why he cannot look at you. Margaret tried to help me run that night. Dear, brave Margaret, only 15 and ready to fight the world for me. Fresh tears came. I pray she died quick in that massacre, that she didn't suffer. You may find her again. Taza said gently. Desert big. People survive strange things. False hope is cruel. All hope look false in darkness, but sun always rise. Clara turned to study his face in the firelight. How can you still believe in hope, after everything? Because I see you, he said simply. Broken, but not defeated. Like desert after storm, scarred but blooming. You give me hope. I'm nobody's hope. Taza, I'm a curse. Everyone near me dies. Then I already dead man. He touched her cheek, but feel very alive. More alive than since little flower leave. The truth of it hung between them, this impossible connection that defied every law of their separate worlds. Apache warrior and white woman, drawn together by loss, held by something stronger than either dared name. What would she think? Clara asked. Your sister. About us? Taza was quiet for a long moment. She always say heart see clearer than eyes, that love wear many faces, speak many tongues. Think she like you, both stubborn, both kind under fierce. And my family, your mother who save you from bad man, think she understand. Want daughter free, safe, happy maybe, happy. Clara tested the word like a foreign language. I'd forgotten what that means. I show you. Taza promised. When wounds heal, when danger pass, take you to mountain meadow where flowers grow tall as horses. Show you sunrise from sacred peaks, teach you to read stories and stars. You speak as if we have a future. Why not? Past is dead. Present is gift. Future is blank hide, waiting for our marks. Clara wanted to believe him, but reality pressed down like the weight of stone. Your people will never accept me. Mine will never accept you. Where would we go? How would we live? Mexico, maybe, California, places where mixed blood common. Or stay here, in hidden places, desert full of secrets. Running forever? That's no life. Better than no life at all. Better than life in cage. A coyote called in the distance, answered by another, then another, until the night rang with their wild chorus. Clara shivered, and Taza wrapped his blanket around them both. Sometimes I dream about that night, she confessed. Holbrook's hands on me, the knife sliding in. But in the dreams, I don't fight back. I let him do what he wants. and my family lives. We make it to Tucson, start new. Margaret finds a good husband, has babies. Mother opens a dress shop. Father finds honest work. And you? I disappear, fade like morning mist. Better that way. No. Taza's arm tightened around her. You fight because fighting is right. Because you worth more than man's debt. Family die because evil men do evil. Not your fault. Knowledge and feeling are different things. Yes, but feeling change with time, with healing, with love. That word again, spoken soft but clear. Clara's heart raced, but she didn't pull away. Is that what this is, love? What else? You think I risk everything for sympathy? Share sacred places for pity? Maybe you're just kind. Kind is share water with stranger. This, he gestured between them. This is heart recognizing heart, soul calling to soul. Clara turned in his arms, searching his face. I'm frightened. Of me? Of feeling again. Of hoping. Of losing you too. Cannot promise forever. No one can. But promise this, while I breathe, you not alone. While I stand, you protected. While my heart beats, it beats for you. The words were formal, almost ceremonial. Clara recognized the weight of them, the binding nature of an Apache vow. And if your people come, if you must choose. Already chose. Night I save you. I choose. Every day since, I choose again. You are my people now. Clara kissed him then, pouring all her grief and gratitude and growing love into the connection. When they parted, both were breathless. Teach me, she said. Teach me to be strong like Apache woman, to survive, to fight, to choose love over fear. You already stronger than any Apache woman I know, but I teach what I can. Together we learn new way. They talked through the night, planning and dreaming in equal measure. As dawn approached, painting the eastern sky in shades of pearl and rose, Clara felt something shift inside her chest, a loosening of the grief that had bound her heart like burial wrappings. She wasn't healed, perhaps never would be completely, but for the first time since that night in Missouri, she could imagine a future that held more than running and hiding. A future painted in different colors than she'd ever dreamed, but beautiful in its strangeness. Little Flower's spirit seemed to dance in the morning light, blessing this unlikely love with her remembered laughter. And somewhere in the vast silence of the desert, two hearts began to write a new story on the blank hide of tomorrow. The dust cloud appeared on the horizon just after sunrise, a brown smudge against the crystal blue sky. Taza spotted it first, his body tensing like a drawn bow. Clara felt the change in him immediately, her hand instinctively moving to the knife at her belt, a gesture that would have been foreign to her just weeks ago. Riders, he said quietly. Many, moving fast. Apache? No, horses shod with iron, military. Clara's blood chilled. The army meant questions, meant being returned to civilization, meant separation from Taza. Worse, if Holbrook had connections, he might have put out word about a missing woman. We run, Taza decided, already gathering their few possessions. They fled deeper into the canyon system, following paths only Taza knew. Clara's ankle, though mostly healed, protested the pace. She gritted her teeth and pushed on, knowing their lives depended on speed. Behind them, echoing off the canyon walls, came the sound of pursuit, horses' hooves, men's voices, the clatter of military equipment. The soldiers had found their camp, were following their trail with the dogged determination of hounds. Here, Taza pulled her into a narrow crevice between two massive boulders. They pressed deep into the shadows, bodies molded together, breathing shallow. The sounds grew closer. Through the thin gap, Clara could see blue uniforms passing, dust motes dancing in the shafts of light. Her heart hammered so hard she feared they'd hear it. Found evidence of a camp. Sergeant, a young voice said. Fire pits cold, but recent. 2 sets of tracks, one Apache, one smaller. Boot prints suggest a woman. Must be the Whitmore girl, replied an older voice, gravelly with authority. The one the survivors from the wagon train mentioned said she'd been taken by savages. Sir, what if she doesn't want to be found? Thompson said she seemed to be with the Apache voluntary-like when he glimpsed them. Don't matter what she wants. Private, white woman living with Apache. That ain't natural nor proper. We got orders to retrieve her and eliminate any hostiles. Clara felt Taza's muscles coil, ready to fight. She pressed a hand to his chest, a silent plea against a dozen armed soldiers. He wouldn't stand a chance. The patrol moved past, their voices fading. They waited long minutes before emerging, both aware this was only the beginning. The army wouldn't give up easily. They know about us, Clara whispered. Someone from the wagon train survived, saw us together. We go deeper into mountains, places soldiers cannot follow. They climbed through the heat of the day, ascending into the Chiricahua range where Taza's people had taken refuge. The terrain grew increasingly treacherous, loose scree, narrow ledges, passages that required squeezing through gaps in the stone. As they climbed, Taza shared his knowledge. Step where I step, rock here weak, crumble under weight. This plant, remember, makes good rope when dried. Water seeps here after rain, can survive if nowhere to look. Clara absorbed every lesson. Understanding her life might depend on such details. The soft woman who'd left Missouri existed like a dream now. In her place stood someone harder, leaner, shaped by loss and survival. By late afternoon, they reached a hidden valley cupped between peaks. A spring-fed pool reflected the sky, surrounded by piñon and juniper. Ancient ruins dotted the cliff sides, the remains of the old ones who'd lived here centuries before Apache or white man. Safe here tonight, Taza said, but his expression remained troubled. Tomorrow, must decide. Soldiers not give up. They bring Apache scouts. Find any trail. As they made camp in one of the ruins, Clara voiced the fear gnawing at her heart. I should leave. Lead them away from you. It's me they want. No, Taza, be reasonable. Your life is nothing without purpose. You my purpose now. He cupped her face in his hands. We survived together, or not at all. That night, the wind carried a new sound. Apache voices, calling across the darkness in their native tongue. Taza went rigid, then responded with a complex whistle. Minutes later, 3 warriors materialized from the shadows like smoke given form. Clara recognized one, Black Wolf, Taza's cousin, who'd led the attack on the bandits. The others were younger, faces painted for war. All 3 stared at her with expressions ranging from curiosity to open hostility. A rapid conversation in Apache followed. Clara caught only fragments, but the tone was clear: anger, disbelief, accusation. Black Wolf gestured sharply at her, then at Taza, his voice rising. Taza responded calmly at first, then with increasing heat. The argument escalated until all 4 men were shouting. One of the younger warriors reached for his knife, and Clara's hand found her own blade. The movement caught Black Wolf's eye. He said something that made the others laugh, harsh, mocking laughter. Taza's face darkened with fury. What did he say? Clara demanded. Not important. Tell me. Taza's jaw clenched. He say you make me weak, turn me into pet dog for white woman. Say I betray my sister's memory, lie with enemy. The words hit like physical blows, but Clara stood straight. Maybe he's right. No. Taza stepped between her and his kinsman. You know nothing, cousin. This woman suffer like Apache, lose family to evil men, fight for freedom, for life. She earned respect. Black Wolf spat at the ground. When he spoke again, his words were in English, meant for her. Apache respect. You think spread legs for warrior make you Apache? Clara moved faster than thought. Her knife flashed in the firelight, slicing a thin line across Black Wolf's cheek before he could react. Blood welled, dripping onto his war shirt. Absolute silence fell. The younger warriors reached for weapons, but Black Wolf raised a hand, touching the cut with something almost like appreciation. So, the white rabbit has claws, he said. Maybe you survive after all. He turned to Taza. Soldiers make camp at Skeleton Canyon. 50 men, Apache scouts from San Carlos. They come here tomorrow. Then we fight." Taza said, "We. You choose her over your people. I choose both. We fight to protect all. Apache and those soldiers would harm." Black Wolf studied them for a long moment. "You walk difficult path, cousin, but family is family." He gestured to the other warriors. "We delay soldiers, give you time, but after this, you alone. Tribal council will not accept white woman, no matter how sharp her claws." After they left, melting back into the darkness, Clara and Taza stood in heavy silence. Finally, she spoke. "I've destroyed your life. No, change it. Different thing." He pulled her close. "Black Wolf, right about one thing. We must move. Cannot stay in these mountains." They dozed fitfully, taking turns on watch. Just before dawn, the war cries began. Apache attacks on the military camp below. Gunfire crackled like firecrackers in the canyon. Taza led Clara on a treacherous path along the ridge, moving away from the battle. They were crossing a narrow ledge when the shot came. The bullet sparked off the rock inches from Clara's head, sending stone chips flying. She dropped flat as more shots followed. Soldiers on the opposite ridge firing at their position. "Go!" Taza pushed her toward a cluster of boulders. They scrambled for cover as bullets whined overhead. Trapped on the exposed ledge, they couldn't retreat or advance. "Give up the woman! Savage!" a voice echoed across the canyon. "Send her out, and you can go free!" Taza responded with an arrow that took the speaker's hat off. More gunfire erupted, pinning them down. Clara could see uniformed figures working their way around, trying to flank their position. "No choice," Taza said grimly. "Must jump." Clara looked over the edge, a 20-foot drop to a slope of loose talus. Possible to survive, but far from certain. "Together," she said, taking his hand. They leaped as bullets struck where they'd been. Clara hit hard, pain shooting through her barely healed ankle. They rolled and slid down the slope in a cascade of rocks and dust. Soldiers shouting above. At the bottom, Taza pulled her into a run despite her limp. The canyon narrowed ahead. Walls closing in. Water rushed through the gap. Flash flood from storms in the high country. Behind them, boots on stone, getting closer. Ahead, a wall of brown water carrying debris. Trees, boulders. Clara understood with crystal clarity. They were trapped between death by bullet and death by water. "Trust me," Taza said, and dove into the flood. Clara followed without hesitation. The current took them like a giant's hand, spinning them helplessly. She fought to keep her head above water, lungs burning. Taza's hand found hers, pulled her against a floating log. They rode the flood through the canyon, battered by debris, deafened by the water's roar. Just when Clara thought she couldn't hold on, the canyon widened. The water spread out, slowing, depositing them on a sandy bank like driftwood. They lay gasping, alive against all odds. In the distance, thunder rumbled, more storms coming. But for now, they were free, the flood having carried them miles from their pursuers. "You see," Taza said when he could speak, "desert provides, water saves us." Clara laughed, slightly hysterical. "Your desert nearly killed us." "Nearly not same as dead." He helped her stand, both of them battered but whole. "Come, I know place. Old Mexican trading post, abandoned. We rest, then decide." As they limped away from the river, Clara looked back at the mountains where Taza's people fought to give them time. She thought of Black Wolf's words, of the bridges burned, the prices paid, but Taza's hand was warm in hers, and they were alive. And sometimes that was enough. The storm clouds built higher, promising more violence, more change, but also rain for the desert, life from apparent death. They walked toward an uncertain future. Two people caught between worlds, bound by love that demanded everything and promised nothing except this moment, this breath, this stubborn refusal to surrender to the forces trying to tear them apart. The abandoned trading post squatted against the canyon wall like a forgotten grave, its adobe walls crumbling but still solid enough for shelter. Clara and Taza had traveled through the night, putting distance between themselves and their pursuers. Now, as dawn painted the desert in shades of amber and rose, they finally stopped to rest. Taza scouted the perimeter while Clara collapsed against a wall, her ankle throbbing. The flood had reopened some of her wounds, and dried blood stained her tattered dress. But they were alive, and for now, that was miracle enough. "Safe," Taza announced, returning. "No tracks for miles, but cannot stay long," as he tended her injuries with their dwindling supply of herbs. They heard horses approaching, both tensed, hands on weapons, until a lone rider appeared, a young cavalry officer, his uniform torn and dusty. He held his hands high, showing he was unarmed. "Please," he called out. "I mean no harm. I'm Lieutenant James McKenna. I need to speak with you." Taza notched an arrow, but Clara placed a hand on his arm. Something in the officer's voice, a note of desperation rather than authority, made her pause. "Speak from there," she called back. McKenna dismounted slowly, keeping his hands visible. "Miss Whitmore, I was with the patrol searching for you, but I've deserted. I couldn't be part of what they're planning anymore." "What planning?" Taza demanded. "Colonel Morrison received new orders. They're not just trying to rescue you anymore. Miss, there's a bounty, $5,000 for your return, dead or alive, posted by someone named Holbrook." Clara's knees buckled. Even here, even now, Holbrook's shadow reached for her. McKenna continued. "When the Apache attacked our camp, I saw things, terrible things. We shot women, children fleeing, called them all hostiles. I've been soldiering for 3 years, but I never signed up to murder innocents." "Why should we trust you?" Clara asked. The young officer reached into his jacket, moving slowly. He pulled out a leather folder and tossed it at their feet. "My commission papers and a letter from Colonel Morrison. Read it. You'll see I'm telling the truth." Clara retrieved the documents, her hands shaking as she read. The colonel's orders were explicit. Retrieve the white woman by any means necessary. Eliminate all Apache contacts, and if the woman resisted or appeared corrupted by savage influence, she was to be considered hostile as well. "My God," she breathed. "They mean to kill us both. Not if I can help it." McKenna said, "I know these mountains. My father was a surveyor before the war. There's a passage through Devil's Canyon that leads to Mexico. Rough going, but possible. The army doesn't know about it." Taza studied the young officer with suspicious eyes. "Why help us?" McKenna was quiet for a moment. "I had a sister once, Sarah. She fell in love with a Mexican vaquero, ran off with him. My father hunted them down, brought her back, forced her to marry a proper man who beat her daily. She took her own life within a year." His voice roughened. "I won't be part of destroying another woman's chance at happiness, no matter what the world says is right or proper." Clara saw the pain in his eyes and recognized a kindred spirit, someone else crushed between society's rules and human compassion. "Show us," she said. Taza clearly disagreed, but followed her lead. As they prepared to leave, McKenna warned, "There's more. Holbrook's hired guns, bounty hunters, are coming from Tucson. Mean ones. They'll be here by nightfall." They traveled hard through the morning heat, McKenna leading them through landscapes that seemed carved from nightmares, twisted rock formations, narrow slots where they had to abandon the horses and continue on foot, paths that skirted dizzying drops. At midday, they stopped to rest in the shade of a massive boulder. McKenna shared his water and hardtack, the first gesture of trust between former enemies. "Can I ask you something?" he said to Clara. "Is it true, what they say about Apache stealing white women?" Clara looked at Taza, then back at the lieutenant. "I wasn't stolen. I was saved. Everything I was taught about the Apache was wrong. They're people. Lieutenant, just people trying to survive in a world that wants them dead." "And you love him?" The question was bold, but asked with genuine curiosity rather than judgment. "With everything I have left." Clara answered simply. McKenna nodded slowly. "Then I'm doing the right thing." As afternoon shadows lengthened, they reached Devil's Canyon, a gash in the earth so deep the bottom lay in perpetual twilight. The passage McKenna indicated was barely a goat track clinging to the canyon wall. "Once we start down, there's no turning back," he warned. "It's Mexico or nothing." That's when they heard them. Horses, dogs, the rough voices of men who hunted humans for sport and profit. The bounty hunters had found their trail faster than expected. "Go," McKenna said suddenly. "I'll hold them off." "That's suicide," Clara protested. The young officer smiled sadly. "Maybe, but it's my choice. My chance to do something right for once." He handed Taza his rifle and ammunition. "You'll need this more than I will. I've got my sidearm." "Why?" Taza asked, accepting the weapon with surprise. "Because any man willing to give up everything for love deserves a fighting chance. Now go." They heard the lead riders approaching, dogs baying, no time for long farewells. Clara impulsively kissed McKenna's cheek. "Thank you. We won't forget." "Just be happy," he said. "That's thanks enough." Clara and Taza plunged into Devil's Canyon as the first shots rang out behind them. The path was treacherous beyond description. Loose shale that slid away underfoot. Sections where they had to press against the wall and inch along ledges no wider than a handspan. Behind them, gunfire intensified. McKenna was buying them time with his life. Clara forced herself to focus on the path, on survival, on the strong hand that guided her through the worst passages. Halfway down, disaster struck. The ledge crumbled under Clara's weight. She felt herself falling, scrabbled desperately for purchase, found only air. Taza's hand caught her wrist, nearly dislocating her shoulder but stopping her fall. She dangled over the abyss, rocks tumbling into darkness below. With strength born of desperation, he hauled her up, both of them gasping. "Together," he reminded her. "Always together." They continued their descent as the sun set, painting the canyon walls blood red. The gunfire above had stopped. Either McKenna had driven off the hunters, or, more likely, had made the ultimate sacrifice. Night found them at the canyon bottom, following a dry riverbed toward Mexico. They could see the border, just a line on maps, but representing freedom. Behind them, torches appeared on the canyon rim. The hunters hadn't given up. "Run!" Taza urged. They ran through the darkness, stumbling over rocks, thorns tearing at their clothes. The border was close, so close. A rifle cracked. Taza grunted, stumbling. Clara caught him, felt wetness on her hands. Blood! "No!" She half-carried him behind a cluster of boulders. The wound was in his side, bleeding freely. "Go!" he gasped. "Mexico there. You make it." "Not without you. Never without you." She tore strips from her dress, packed the wound as he'd taught her. The hunters were coming, their torches bobbing closer. Clara looked at the rifle McKenna had given them, made her decision. "Can you walk?" "Maybe, slowly." "Then go, cross the border. I'll be right behind." "Clara, trust me, as I trusted you." He kissed her fierce and quick, then limped toward Mexico. Clara checked the rifle, found it loaded, and took position behind the rocks. The first hunter to come into range fell to her shot. She'd never killed before, felt nothing but cold necessity. The others scattered, seeking cover. She fired methodically, making each shot count, buying time. When the rifle clicked empty, she ran, behind her. Angry shouts and return fire. Ahead, Taza waited at what must be the border, an old fence post. Nothing more. She was almost there when burning pain tore through her leg. She fell hard, crawled the last yards. Taza pulled her across the invisible line as bullets struck around them. But the hunters had stopped at the border, unwilling to pursue into Mexico where different laws applied. They lay gasping in the dust of a new country, both wounded, both alive. The eastern sky was lightening, stars fading with the promise of dawn. "We made it," Clara whispered. "Beginning, not end." Taza corrected. "Hard road ahead." "I know." She found his hand, squeezed tight. "But we'll walk it together." As the sun rose over Mexico, painting the desert in shades of gold and promise, Two unlikely lovers faced an uncertain future. Behind them lay death and division. Ahead waited challenges they couldn't imagine. But in that moment, bloodied and exhausted on foreign soil, they had each other, and sometimes, against all odds and opposition, love was enough. The desert stretched endless before them, harsh and beautiful as their love. They rose, supporting each other, and walked toward whatever destiny awaited. Not Apache, not white, but something new. Two hearts that had found home in each other, writing their own story across the blank canvas of tomorrow. In the distance, church bells rang, calling the faithful to morning prayer. Clara and Taza moved toward that sound, toward civilization, toward a future they would build with their own hands. The sun climbed higher, warming their faces, blessing their journey with light. They did not look back. Thank you so much for listening to this tale from the Old West. If you're enjoying these stories around our Wild West campfire, I'd love to know where you're listening from. Leave a comment below and let's connect across the miles. Don't forget to subscribe to Wild West Campfire for more tales of love, loss, and redemption from the American frontier. Share your thoughts about Clara and Taza's journey in the comments. Until next time, partners, keep your fires burning and your hearts open to the unexpected trails life might lead you down.